So you ever watch a show where everything looks like it's about to click, but then nothing actually does? Well, that was this show. Match after match pretty much started to build, tease something interesting, and then just stops. Not bad enough to hate, but way too flat to recommend. It was one of those nights where you kept on waiting for the show to take off, and then it just never does. This was supposed to feel like a celebration of sorts. A landmark pro wrestling Noah event with legacy names, gold on the line, and a stacked up lineup that hinted at something bigger. But the further in you got, the clearer it became. Nothing was really going to land the way it should have. The matches weren't disasters. The crowd wasn't dead. And the effort was somewhat there, but the momentum never went anywhere. Everything kept teasing a payoff. Then it was either rushed when it comes to the finish, stalled out, or just didn't fall through. And that's what really stuck with me. Not that it was bad, just that it almost mattered over and over again. Let's start with the GHC heavyweight title match, where expectations were somewhat high, and that's exactly why the letdown of this hit even harder. The GHC heavyweight title match with OZAWA vs. KENTA was a good main event, but not a great one. OZAWA retaining against KENTA should have felt like a defining moment, but while it had some effective control segments and intensity, it also had the typical interference that didn't kill the match, but definitely didn't help it. There was something about the flow that kept it from fully lifting off. But still though, both guys worked hard and sold the weight of the moment decently. And for that, I give this one 3 3/4 stars. Now sticking with the theme of legacy and weight, the match that followed it emotionally wasn't for a title, but it hit the same ceiling. Naomichi Marufuji vs. Kaito Kiyomiya was one of the bright spots of the show. Kiyomiya beating Marufuji felt like an earned moment, and both guys worked with purpose. There was strong selling, a smooth back and forth rhythm, and enough time to make it feel meaningful, even if it could have used a few more minutes to really hit the peak of intensity here. It never really crossed into great territory, but it got pretty close. I gave this one 3 3/4 stars for a very good match that anchored the card well. Now here's where we flip the structure a bit. You expect something explosive to follow, and this match looked like it could have been that, but again, the potential capped off early. The GAC Tag Team title match with Keno and Oka Sasaki versus Daga and Jack Morris showed some flashes of something better, but wrapped up before it even really could get there. Now Oka Sasaki had a really good moment with a cutter counter that did pop the crowd, and he's clearly developing into a more well-rounded performer. Keno, he pretty much did what Keno always does. He was hitting hard and staying intense, but the match itself felt like a tease for something more than a conclusion. That was the story of the night here in a lot of ways. Things got going, then stopped before they could stick. This match did have a solid effort, but the pacing felt off at times. This one gets 2 3/4 stars. And after that slow fizzle, the next match injected energy back into the show, even if it was only for temporarily. The GAC Junior Heavyweight Tag Team title match with Amakusa and Junta Miyakawa versus Alpha Wolf and Dragon Bane was a fast-paced opener that gave the show a jolt of energy right away. Now Alpha Wolf and Dragon Bane brought their usual stuff, and Junta Miyakawa matched that speed with one of the more cleaner top rope arm drags I've seen in a while. Now the crowd woke up after a ridiculous suicide flip into the crowd by Alpha Wolf, which just looked really absurd. But there were nice technical touches too in this match, like the exploder suplex on Bane earlier in the match, but it never overstayed its welcome. I thought this was a very fun way to kick off the show, and I gave this one 3.5 stars. Now from Wild to Grounded, we shifted into veteran presence next, but once again, things didn't quite gel. Jun Nakayama and Takeshi Sugiura versus Team 2000X. On paper, this looked like a match that could have over-delivered, but too much interference and shenanigans pulled this down. Akiyama and Sugiura still carried a lot of weight with fans, and you'd think this will be a showcase of veteran savvy versus aggression, Instead, it got bogged down into stuff that didn't add to the story that much. Like several other matches tonight, it flirted with being more than what it was, but it didn't follow through. This one here gets 2 3/4 stars for a match that left too much potential on the table. And then came the junior heavyweight title match, a match with real stakes, a title change, and not much else. The GAC junior heavyweight title match with Ita vs Yohei saw Yohei winning the junior title, and that should have felt bigger to me. They set the tone early with a gutsy angle about him pushing through pain and adversity, but the match never really escalated beyond that setup. Ita worked the methodical style, but it lacked spark, and the whole thing stayed stuck in that fine but forgettable zone. Like others on the card, this match hovered into that second gear when it needed to shift higher. I give this one 2.5 stars. Not bad, just underwhelming. Now with the big title matches out of the way, the middle of the show felt like it was just trying to fill space. The GAC national title match with Galeno versus Saxon Huxley was short and unfortunately pretty mid. Galeno retains the title, but there just wasn't enough to latch onto here. No really emotional weight, no real tempo changes. It was just there. Huxley tried to bring some physicality, and Galeno did his part, but the match never really left that first gear. At best, it felt like a mid-show breather, but that's not what you want from a title match. I gave this one 1 3/4 stars, and maybe that's just me being generous. The tag team match that followed had bodies everywhere, but it barely left a mark. The 10-man tag with Kotoge, Mensure, Ohara, Fujita, and Yone versus All Rebellion, Kiyomiya, Taniguchi, and Kondo was exactly what you expect from a bloated 10-man tag. Just serviceable filler. It had a few bright moments, like Alejandro Smooth Tope Conhiro, but otherwise it didn't really click emotionally or creatively. The Yone-led team got the win, but the match felt like it could have been slotted into any random undercard spot on her tour show. No real stakes, no lasting impression here. This gets 2 stars for a match that existed more than it entertained. And finally, one match I could have done completely without. Tadasuke vs Hayata with Manaba Soya as a special referee was pretty rough. The special referee gimmick with Soya didn't really add anything, and instead it just dragged the match further down. Hayata accidentally dropkicked Soya early on, and then Soya hit him back later, which led to the finish, but none of it really landed. I just didn't care going in, and I cared even less once it was over. Easily the weakest match in the night at just 1 star. The anniversary show wasn't bad, but it definitely wasn't what you hoped for a milestone event. There are moments that scattered across the card that hinted at something stronger, a wild dive here, a slick counter there, but as a whole, the night just lacked urgency and emotional payoff. Too many matches felt like placeholders or filler, and even the ones that had potential never really fully delivered. That pattern of things starting to build but failing to pay off defined the show more than any one segment. I didn't expect a show of the year contender or anything, but I did expect better from what we saw. I give this a 6.75 out of 10, and not something I recommend.